Hey, what's up, YouTube? Panda SSWI here, colleague, etched in blood, bringing to you another episode of the Mandalorian Season 2.
Man, this episode was fun.
Fun, and I'm still itching. Definitely, disclaimer right now, spoiler alerts, okay? A lot of things happened in the second episode.
The episode called The Passenger. We saw the hero, the Mando, speeding away on his way from killing the Krayt Dragon. He was jumped by those bounty hunters, which was which was surprising, but it was a nice little callback to season 1, where we remember that Moff Gideon has a bounty out on Mando. So
Yep.
He's gonna keep running into people who are trying to get the child. What did you think about that whole situation and how he handled it?
I felt like he's getting away from this is the way, the Mando code, because right there he was gonna trade the child for his jetpack, which that's sacred in honoring what they say they're gonna do. And the plot twist was, dude took the jetpack, got the running, and he hits the remote control, like push to start, and sends him flying in the air like 300 feet and falls down, gets the jetpack back, and gets the child back, safe and sound. After one-on-one combat with 5 dudes, and he just demolishes them all so quickly.
Yeah, he certainly can hold his own against anything, even surprises. And they have no problem tossing that kid around or letting him get punched either. He came off that bike pretty quickly. I'm sure if he was on the highway on a motorcycle, which is kind of the equivalent to what was happening there, I'm not sure that a normal child would have survived that.
Yeah, you talk about the Force. The Force is with you, because it ain't with everybody.
Or that character who was thrown up in the air by the remote-controlled jetpack. I didn't see anything that confirmed what that was, but I did see that it was a creature that's also been featured on, apparently, The Force Awakens on Jakku. And I guess people broke down what he was saying, and he was speaking Huttese, which is another reference that we'll get to later when they're on the ship. And Mando actually says, tries to talk to the frog lady in Huttese.
Wow.
Which makes sense because they're, still on Tatooine, so the Huttese makes sense.
Man, then imagine that, bro. Then you gotta walk. Like, this is the thing that trips me out about Mandalorian, because he's in the desert in this metal suit. And I gotta think, bro, do these suits have like some type of air cooling system? Okay? Because he's got a helmet on in the middle of the desert. The heat's gotta be over 100, bro. How is he not burning up in that damn suit, bro?
Yeah, I'm sure it takes a lot of Buddhist-like concentration to block out the heat and the exhaustion of doing what he did there. Carrying all that gear plus Boba Fett's gear.
Yeah.
All the way back.
And this child.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And he's really got to keep him close too, because he just got attacked. And when he got to that cantina, he runs into Peli again, and she's playing the game Sabak. Yeah, and she was playing with that huge ant creature, which I did a little research on that. I don't know for sure what exactly it was, but a lot of people were saying it looks like a Killik, a Killik, which apparently its home planet was Alderaan before it met its demise. So that would be a nice little callback there to an earlier Star Wars movie. The game they're playing, like I said, called Sabak, which was the game that Han Solo played to win the Millennium Falcon, but is also the hand that she plays is very interesting that she wins with, because the hand is called Idiot's Array, and that was the same hand that Lando Calrissian played in a Star Wars episode named after that very hand, called Idiot's Array. And the way she says it to it and even on top of that, she name drops Rodian. She goes, "I'm not some Rodian from crying out loud," and that's a callback to Greedo. Which
Greedo.
Exactly. Snap. Yeah, exactly. So that was a cool, going back and finding all these little things. If you go back to before he went in to the cantina, simple things like he was walking there during the day, and then they did the classic Star Wars day to night flip, where the next time you see him, it's night and he's walking in the city. Plus, when he was overlooking the town of Mos Eisley, kind of referenced that throwback to when Obi-Wan Kenobi was standing there with Luke and said, he said something bad about the town, but it was kind of a little throwback to that view. Wow. They do every little scene is something like.
Yeah, and yet still, he still has no clue on where any Mandos are, which is basically who he's trying to find to get the child back to where he's from. Dr. Mandible tells him that there's Mandos on this planet, which leads Peli to tell him that the only way you're going to find these other Mandos is by bringing on the passenger, which is the title of this episode.
Right. I was surprised that it was somebody that, I mean, I guess not too surprised once you kind of figured out throughout the episode that it had a side questy feel, but still a means to unlock more to the story, which we find out, like you just said, that her husband is on the planet where they last has been reported that Mandos were seen. So any kind of character they would have introduced there could have been cool. I like the direction they went with this particular character.
And then seeing the way Baby Yoda was looking at that whole glass of eggs, like it was a buffet. Like that was very foreboding, dude. Like that was very foreboding. I'm like, yo, this is the last of their species, and all the child sees is, oh, that's dinner.
Yeah, absolutely. He was totally a savage about those eggs. I mean, showed spurts of that in season 1 where he's just picking up anything that looks that could be kind of considered food when he pulled that frog in his mouth and everything. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like he didn't care. And then the fact that they couldn't use hyperdrive, so they had to take basically the long route to just get to a planet that was like one system over, which easily could have been done in 5 minutes probably. But because of this fact, they needed to go in space, which leads them to his first interaction with the New Rebellion, the New Republic. And plane chase with them, and they crash land on this icy planet.
Right? Yeah, he gets chased down because he doesn't have his transponder on. They go through a little back and forth about what he's doing, and they have, of course, the little verbal callback of "May the Force be with you," and then the crazy thing was that he said, "and also with you." So that was a nice little thing that happened there. And I still haven't seen anything confirmed about what planet it was that they landed on, because this was something we saw in the season 2 preview for the entire season that Disney released about a month ago now. Was these very scenes where Baby Yoda is standing in front of him, and then they start walking into a chase in the air, leading into the narrow ravine that seems to always reoccur in Star Wars 2, kind of a nice little, maybe a callback to destroying the Death Star and stuff like that.
Right.
And when he crash landed and then fell even further in, you definitely knew this was going to be an episode where he's trying to, escape something here, and obviously try and survive. And kind of like you hinted at, where they weren't able to use hyperdrive, you knew that something was going to come up.
Yeah, and then even being on that icy planet, like you see the savageness of this child, and like first and foremost, when they were even getting to the point of getting to that moon, he finds the child going into this woman's eggs, which is the last of her species, and eating them like they're chips. He has no like recognition of like this is the last of the species. He's like, well, and mind you, the child is the last of his species, so he doesn't even show any like remorse, no care, no sympathy for the. He's like, oh, this is food. I'm hungry, And like several times in this episode, you see that this child just doesn't care, bro. Like, yo, this is dinner.
Right? Yeah. He immediately, when he first goes to that tank, he kind of force pulls them,
oh wow.
Yeah, he certainly that was his whole.
He did.
That was his side mission this week. Was that?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't care if we get eaten by spiders. I'm about to get some of those eggs.
Exactly, right? And then, mind you, after that, they're crash landed on this icy planet, and Mando tries to fix the ship. That doesn't work. Frog Lady just goes on her own. She's in a hot tub with her babies, trying to keep them warm, because obviously icy planet, and just naturally, the last of her species, they need to keep warm. And she's in the pool, just taking a bath, like having just like okay, you know. And here goes Baby Yoda again, trying to take the eggs, and he's like, no. And then you get this. I find it funny because this is like pop culture to the movie Alien, because he walks to these other eggs and he realizes there's life form, and he reaches inside of it and eats it.
Right? Yeah. I mean, he tears that thing apart too. Anything, if you know kids, they just put their hands on anything, and then if it seems all right, they put it in their mouth, most likely.
Yeah. And at that moment, you know, the child is caught red-handed, hands in a cookie jar. And now this is where the conflict arises, because now you see all these other spiders come out of nowhere. And at this point, dude, I promise you, I was so itchy just because I'm like, oh, it's the spiders, dude. This is like the worst, like, possible thing you could think of, dude. Like, you're getting attacked by not just regular spiders. These spiders are like from 3 meters to like 20 feet to 40 feet. This ginormous giant spider, and they're getting chased through a cavern, having to run, dude. Like, I'm sorry, hey, it's every man for themselves. I'm activating that jetpack and we gone. Flat out, no.
Yeah. Yeah, that probably would have been me too. I would have tried to reach out for people, and if they didn't grab on, the jetpack would have been activated.
Yeah, and they end up in that nest, dude. And just even getting out there, I know you pointed this to earlier. Like again, he uses his flamethrower, which every episode you've been seeing, like he's been using the flamethrower, the infamous flamethrower of the Mandos.
Definitely his favorite thing to use for sure. He's done it in every single episode since episode 1 of the first season. And yeah, they, you know, them fleeing the nest and then, you know, having to fight minimal ways. He used the little bombs to kind of disable the main spider, probably the mama spider, for a moment, and then after they fought their way into the ship and into the cockpit, and even the frog lady had to get off a couple of crack shots to save Baby Yoda potentially, which was nice of her, since he's just gonna keep eating her eggs.
You know, the mama spider of the nest freaking jump on this ship to stop them.
Right, yeah, and you know, the spiders, they are on an icy planet, and it's, you know, obviously a very desolate planet, but I don't think they were ice spiders, and we were talking about this a little bit before. I think they're white spiders, and if they are native to Dagobah, if you look into the Star Wars system of creatures and species and stuff like that, and they're featured and fought by a lot of characters in Clone Wars and Rebels, and even Luke and Yoda both fought them in certain situations. Luke in his training, and Yoda later on in his life when he fought his dark self, I think is what you said earlier.
See, I remember in Rebels when they're on that.
Yeah,
I remember in Rebels when Kanan and Ezra, they landed on that planet, and those white spiders were there, and that's when they end up meeting Bendu, who was like the medium between the forces of the dark side and light side. So he was neither. And then that's where that interaction came from, and like how you said with that being from Dagobah, which makes sense because even where you see the nest was at, it was around the hot springs. So I don't think that they're ice spiders. Like the location and the environment and the reaction to the spiders once, for instance, the Baby Yoda freaking eats one of them. Like nothing happened until that point of Baby Yoda eating one of them, and now they all hatch and immediately go into like attack mode for no reason, but it's because Baby Yoda, he's a savage. He's like at this point, like he's a serial killer. Very much traits of the Mando, savagery and renegade self of shoot first, ask questions later. And I think Baby Yoda has that synergy with him where it's like, you know, I'm gonna do what I want to do, and you know, if somebody has to get killed, it's just gonna happen. You know, just accept it. It's all good. I'm with the Force. The Force is with me, and I'm one with the Force.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely getting out of tight situations, both on his you know, he's the one who's participated in a lot of that, and then also Mando saving situations where Baby Yoda is just not, you know, comprehensive enough to understand danger and things like that. So it almost seems like a comical thing, which is very, you know, Star Warsy in itself.
Yeah.
And you know, this planet deserves a little deeper dive as far as what it is, because they haven't exposed yet. And I saw that it could have been the planet of I'm probably going to say this wrong, Crownest, which is a planet that's been featured in Rebels and is also the ancestral home of Sabine Wren's clan Wren, and that's where Sabine and her mother Ursa were able to reconcile after years spent apart when she goes back there, and then the super commandos attack. Anyway, it's a planet that's featured with, again, we think plot lines and storylines that might intersect from Rebels and Clone Wars. So that's a possibility that it could be that, which makes sense. It's a nice little reference. It's close enough, obviously, to Trask that we could see them go back or have characters that are from there.
But at this point in the story, I think this is more of like the side quest / foreboding tales, because going back to when he was talking with Pella with Dr. Mandible, like you see the first like real insect interaction where it's significant to how Frog Lady comes into the place of even getting to Trask and that journey itself, and then you get the spiders and that whole interaction, confrontation, which is funny because that's what we thought last week's episode. That's what we thought that this was going to be, the confrontation, which the confrontation this time was a nest full of angry spiders, which Baby Yoda ate one and then woke up the rest of them, which to me is pretty wild. The New Republic came back, to actually save them in that moment, and he tells them that you can help me fix my ship, and they're like, listen, next time we just won't blast you out the sky, So, and it's funny because even that episode ends with him saying, wake me up when we get to Trask. The next episode, obviously they got to be on Trask, and that's what I'm wondering. What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen next for them in this journey once they get to Trask?
That's going to be very interesting because we do see what it looks like Trask on the season 2 preview for the whole season. So, and again, they show what looks to be a hooded character on that ship. I think we were looking at a screenshot earlier, not of the hooded character, but of them on the ship with Frog Lady having the backpack.
Yeah.
And Baby Yoda walking with them, and they're clearly on a voyage somewhere. And I think there was a leak of the synopsis or the plot line for the next episode, and it says they run into some unlikely allies. So part of that makes me believe that hooded character or the character they run into could be an ally. It could be a Sabine Wren character, or it could be just somebody that, again, they hid in the previews, and that that other hooded character could be somebody different. What do you think is going to happen next episode? I think they're gonna run into that girl, and I think she's going to be an ally. But I'm open for other options.
Yeah, and same thing with that hooded character, because it's interesting you even pointed it out, because like I think it would be Sabine, except for the fact of I don't know what color her hair is. And Sabine was always that character that was changing her hair, like just as far as the colors and character mashup. And you did point out something interesting before, when we were just talking, that possibly could be a Sith cultist or with the New Order because of the dark robes, which kind of reminds me of when you first see Darth Maul in, what is it, episode 1? And he's in that dark robe, same thing, and he's lurking behind. And you did point out, she does that vanishing act.
She's got to be at least some sort of a bounty hunter level person to be able to do that,
Exactly.
And yeah, it's a very interesting character because obviously it's important enough for them to throw it into the previews, and we know that it's Sasha Banks, but we don't know who she's playing. And you're right about the hair with Sabine. She's always had colorful hair usually, and it's definitely always different colors. And they make it seem in the preview like that character could be doing a couple different things, and it's nice, the unpredictability of what she could be playing and what she could be doing, because she could be there stalking them, or she could be there being like, oh shit, I kind of know or have an understanding of who these people are, and I was hiding out here kind of thing. And that's what leads to a lot of speculation. And have you ever heard of the character Dr. Aphra?
Negative. This is news. Let me get my popcorn.
So this is a character that's been featured, I believe, only in the comics, but she's a huge name because she's basically the Indiana Jones of the Star Wars universe. She's an archaeologist who has spent a lot of time with Darth Vader. she's also even teamed up with Han, Luke, and Leia in comics while working with Vader secretly. So she's a very complex character, and it would make sense that she would be in hiding. This is a far-fetched theory, but it does match the fact that she would, have knowledge of these types of things that have to do with Baby Yoda and possibly the Mandalorians. And then also just a nice other possibility would be that we get a brand new character who's never had screen time before.
And then one thing I want to touch on, because they give you this emblem you was talking about with the dark saber and a lightsaber.
Right. And there was a bunch of, I remember when this emblem came out, and there was a bunch of speculation because we all could tell it was a dark saber, and everybody was arguing over the other lightsaber. And apparently it looks like Vader's saber, which is either a very cool Easter egg, just random little callback that they have, and they're like, lightsaber, haha, we used the guy who was supposed to bring balance, but we also used, it could be anything there with an angle. Or, as we just touched on earlier, if it is like a Darth Vader cultist or a Darth Vader acolyte, there was a search and a huge reward and possible selling point for finding Darth Vader's lightsaber, which was, people search for that. Vader obviously had a huge following, not just in his own army and within his own little circle and everything, but people wanted to, he was like a supervillain,
Yeah.
So there were people who looked up to him, unfortunately, in the universe, and to honor him and to find a way, they might be tracking down things like his lightsaber and or his enemies, or people who they think are his enemies, and perhaps trying to finish his his work, which would be a really another great take that would make the Mandalorian stand apart and really bring the Star Wars name back around to the glory.
So that means that we get a lightsaber battle this season. Is that what you're telling me?
I feel like we have to, just for the fact that Ahsoka's been casted.
Yeah.
I feel like it's got to be at least the lightsaber versus the dark saber, whether it's in Moff Gideon's hands or whoever's. There's definitely going to be a battle, and yeah, I would say yes, 100%. And I think that was one great thing that they left out of the previews is that I love all the surprises we're getting that have been left out, and I feel like Star Wars has a good balance of that with not giving too much away and allowing the speculation.
Like you pointed to them landing on the icy planet. Like a lot of speculation was on that being Ilum, which is where kyber crystals are formed and all of that, and it turned out to be where he crash landed, running from the New Republic. And then he ends up going into that nest, which completely was a plot twist for me, and especially with the spiders. And I hate spiders, dude. Like, dude,
Me too,
oh
man.
my god, just talking about it now, I'm just itching, dude.
I ran into my 3. Things happen in 3s. I've ran into 3 in the last 2.5 days, so I feel like I got my spider interaction out of the way. But of course it happened after that episode. So.
Oh man.
But I think we'll finally get. We'll finally get an answer. Especially, it seems like they're gonna make it to Trask, and unless there's something there, maybe the girl that's in the hoods prevents them from getting there this episode. There being to her husband, the frog lady's husband, who has the information. So that's that's the next step in his journey. He accomplished. He came up with a rackety ship that might make it there, and a passenger who has other passengers that are dying in multiple ways, and then one passenger who can't be trusted. But yeah, so he's trying to get to that next point in the main storyline, and it's that information about where he can find an ally, basically, or what he hopes is going to be an ally. Like that. So it's interesting going forward, whoever he runs into, because of his code and of course his protection of the child, everything.
Yeah, and that's true. But now, like, more that we talk about Sabine, like, I want to say even at the end of Rebels, it said she stayed on that planet for 15 years.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then maybe the character that you're talking about could be Dr. Aphra, or with the Inquisitors, as far as the dark hooded woman who is Sasha Banks, because they haven't revealed her character, but maybe that's not Sabine Wren at all. And it
Right.
could be
Right.
Dr. Aphra, which makes a lot of sense because that's a character you haven't seen in any animated series, any movie, and that could be the introduction right there.
For sure. And again, with the Inquisitors too, their whole purpose was to seek out the Jedi and eliminate them. So it would make sense that if Yoda had another one of his species who's force sensitive, that they would try and finish out. I mean, it's not, we've already seen that Moff Gideon doesn't care that the Empire's gone. He's still basically kind of finishing the Empire's bidding in some ways, but he's a warlord too. So there's obviously other characters that they're going to show that, finishing out certain things that were happening in Return of the Jedi, timeline and plot. There were so many cool little things in this last episode too. Like, this episode was directed by Peyton Reed, who directed Ant-Man. He's also directing Ant-Man 3, I believe. And obviously we got to see a huge ant, which may have been his own little his own little callback kind of thing
Right.
to the Ant-Man
Little
world and
signature.
Avengers. The Frog Lady, the person who was in the costume was the same person that played Kuiil in costume in season 1. Nick Nolte just did the voice for Kuiil. But that was a pretty cool little thing. Dave Filoni being one of the crack shot pilots that saved Mando and Baby Yoda and the Frog Lady and her eggs there at the end when they were getting overrun by the spiders.
Wow.
He was one of the pilots, and he was a pilot in season 1, episode 6 too. But so it makes sense when they had that interaction before he crash landed on the planet, that they remembered the good stuff that he did. He not only put the quote unquote bad guys in prison, but he also saved, if you remember, the soldier who was in the control room, I believe it was.
Oh yeah. Okay.
On the ship. And
now I remember that.
Yeah. And that was in itself a callback, because that was Matt Lanter, I believe is how you say his name. And he's the voice of Anakin Skywalker in the Clone Wars series. So they, like I said, I love looking at these little things, and Star Wars drops in stuff like this all the time, which is awesome. And, they go so deep. Dave Filoni being the pilot, plus being the pilot from the last episode, and he loves wolves. So here's another cool thing. They named his character Trapper Wolf just because he likes wolves. Like, they just do cool stuff like that. And going along with the, but that was a cool, fan service,
I've never noticed Dave Filoni without that damn cowboy hat, bro. So I like, and
right?
I mean, granted, he had the helmet on and goggles, but still, I would have never thought, bro.
It would have made sense if he had a cowboy hat on.
Yeah, but it's funny because even in that scene, he acts like a cowboy,
Right?
Even how the snarky ending to Mando when he's like, "Hey, can you help me with the ship?"
Right, and they don't even get out of their starships. They're kind of shooting from the horse kind of thing.
Exactly. Wow, man, it's the theme of this. Like, it really does feel like a Western saga, and it's like,
oh yeah,
you get the good the first episode, you're gonna get the bad the second, because literally nothing good happened in this episode. Like, nothing good at all from the start to finish. It was just got bad, worse, and worse, and then now we're gonna get ugly.
Yeah, absolutely. They really took the nerves to the edge there, especially when they were boarded up in the cockpit, and I was like, man, for sure they're like, maybe they're just gonna, I mean, it was either the Frog Lady or the eggs, obviously, but I was like, maybe something's gonna happen, something cracks the container, or but I did not expect Dave Filoni to ride in on the horse and come and save everybody.
Yeah, out of everything that happened, that was the only bright spot.
He was
So
like, I appreciate what you did for our boy and what you did for locking those dudes up, but we're not getting involved in whatever you're involved in.
now I'm with it, bro. Now I'm with that bold bold take, bro, on Dr. Aphra. I really think you're onto something with that one, man.
That would be cool if, again with Star Wars just doing their thing with callbacks plus bringing characters out that obviously, I mean, she's a huge deal from what I've been reading. So bringing out characters that deserve screen time as well is really nice of them. That's what this whole show is like anything you look at can be like hey, you remember back in the first original movie at this obscure moment, and you're just like, oh man, you guys are awesome. Like,
yeah, exactly. But that's the great thing just about this series, because it makes you actually want to go back into the points and keys that you probably have no idea about. Like even with Ahsoka, like me, I want to go back and watch Clone Wars all over again. And then just like you were telling me, I just now I'm today's years old and found out that there's a Star Wars Clone Wars movie before the actual series. So it's
right.
like I need to watch that now. You know what I mean? Like
right. Yeah, for sure. I definitely highly recommend it. I told you I just finished watching it again yesterday, and it's the introduction of Ahsoka, and she's just a badass out of the gate, and it's awesome to see. And then that's going back to what we were talking about earlier about my boss getting into it with his kid and his wife. I hope more people do get into the animated series and things like that, because otherwise you will be clueless in a way about what's coming up in The Mandalorian. And now that Disney has their platform and they have all this stuff available, it will be like, I wish I could be around people who, have seen Star Wars movies or know enough, and then you like introduce them to something and you're like, and they see the connection with everything, and you're just like, yeah, right. And you just like, and then you're like, you watch stuff together. Like that would be so cool to be a part of that for somebody who's, interested in this universe.
Good of like how you were saying with this whole Western like theme. The first episode you got the good. I know you kind of pointed to more of the characters, the good being Mando. I forget what you said with the bad and the ugly, but it seems
the bad with Moff Gideon and the ugly potentially being like Boba Fett. But yeah.
And it's like this, you're getting this first episode was like, that was the best thing. That was the good part, Everything was great. Like this was like great protagonist, and then now you got the bad, which this protagonist gets put in a worse situation, and you don't know what's gonna happen. Like you're really 50-50. Like somebody's gonna die. Like some there's got to be some type of And then now they're supposed to get to where he's from, which ain't even like you don't know if he's gonna even find Mandos. You don't know what he's gonna find on here. It's like just a plethora of I don't know. Right at this point.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so great. Like they found a perfect little juncture in the timeline between the first 3 movies and the last 3 movies, and we get nice little fillers.